Ever find yourself wishing you could just download information straight into your brain?
Like instantly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know, right?
totally.
Total sci-fi dream. Well, today's deep dive takes that very question on a wild ride. We're talking about how humans communicate, how tech might be changing the game, and what it all means
Well, for all of
for
us,
all of us,
yeah,
basically everyone.
a fascinating intersection of technology, psychology, and good old-fashioned human connection. Um, I'm eager to dive in.
Buckle up, because we're starting with a question that takes us way back. Remember those dial-up modems? Our
hmm
listener does. And they got us thinking, what if we could communicate as long as those things?
An intriguing thought experiment, especially when we consider the sheer volume of information a modem could transmit compared to the pace of human speech.
Right.
You know?
I mean, we're talking 300 baud, which translates to roughly 37 characters per second. That blows our average 2 to 3 words per second right out of the water. Our listener even pointed out that typing can't keep up with that kind of speed.
Wow.
Yeah.
It does make one wonder. Are our current methods of communication inherently limited by the tools we use, or is there something fundamentally different about human expression?
It's true. We're always finding workarounds to squeeze more meaning into shorter messages. Emojis, for example, they become a language of their own. And don't even get me started on memes.
Yeah, you've got a point. It's fascinating how a single image can now encapsulate what used to take paragraphs to explain. Memes have become cultural currency, conveying complex ideas, emotions, and even social commentary with remarkable efficiency.
And this need for speed, it's everywhere you look. Text slang abbreviations, even that whole TLDR thing. We're obsessed with condensing information. It begs the question, though, does that make us better communicators? Or are we sacrificing something in the process? What do you think?
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? On one hand, efficiency has its merits. But on the other, there's the risk of losing nuance, depth, and that intangible human touch that gives communication its richness.
Right. Because communication isn't just about transmitting data, it's about sharing experiences, emotions, perspectives, all that good stuff. And sometimes a single emoji just doesn't cut it. But what if we could take this idea of compressing communication to a whole new level?
Now we're venturing into some truly uncharted territory.
Our listener brought up Neuralink, which feels like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. The idea of brain-computer interfaces, where you could potentially just think something
Yeah.
and have it understood by someone else. That's wild.
It's certainly pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. Imagine a world where communication transcends language barriers, where thoughts and emotions are conveyed directly without the need for words.
Okay, but hold on a second. That sounds incredible on the surface, but wouldn't that require a much deeper understanding of how thoughts and emotions even work in the brain?
You're right to point that out. While research has identified specific brain regions linked to emotions and even word groupings, the complexity of human thought and experience is far from fully understood.
Right. It's not like we can just map out the brain like it's a computer program. There's so much we still don't know about consciousness, intuition, yeah, all those things that make us human.
Absolutely. And that's where the ethical considerations come into play as well. Even if we could develop technology capable of transmitting thoughts and emotions, should we? What are the implications for privacy, for consent, for the very essence of what it means to have our own internal world?
Those are some heavy questions. It's like we get so caught up in the can we that we forget to ask should we. It reminds me of that saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Precisely. And it highlights the importance of approaching these advancements with a healthy dose of caution and a commitment to open dialogue about the potential consequences.
Absolutely. So even if we're not quite at the stage of thought-to-thought communication, this idea of speeding up our interactions, even with things like instant messaging or video calls, is it changing how we communicate on a fundamental level?
It's a question worth considering. When we become accustomed to instant responses, to always being connected, it can create a sense of urgency that may not always be conducive to thoughtful communication.
Right. Like sometimes you need a minute to process your thoughts, to formulate a response. And that's okay. But technology often encourages us to hit that send button without really thinking things through.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? We have access to more information and can connect with people across the globe instantaneously. But it can also lead to misunderstandings, to a sense of being overwhelmed, and even to a decline in the quality of our interactions.
You know, this whole conversation reminds me of that classic problem in global politics. Sometimes miscommunication isn't about different languages, but different interpretations.
It's a crucial point. Even within the same language, cultural backgrounds, personal experiences, and individual biases shape how we interpret and react to information.
Exactly. And that's where things get really tricky. Because even with the best intentions, what we say and how we say it can be perceived in vastly different ways.
Which brings us back to the idea of prompt engineering, something you mentioned earlier.
Right. So how could that concept,
Yeah.
which is already being explored in AI development, potentially play a role in navigating these complexities? Remind me again how prompt engineering works and how it could help us clear up misunderstandings.
Think of it like setting the stage for a more constructive conversation. By carefully crafting the initial prompts, the way we frame questions or introduce topics, we can nudge the interaction in a more positive direction.
So instead of leading with a statement that could be interpreted as confrontational, you're setting a more neutral, maybe even collaborative tone.
Exactly. It's about finding common ground, establishing shared understanding, and encouraging empathy from the outset.
I like it. It's like that old saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. But this all makes me wonder about the role of AI in all of this. Because if we're talking about using technology to improve communication, don't we have to address the elephant in the room, AI bias?
It's an incredibly important point, and one that our listener was keenly aware of. The question of what data we use to train these large language models, the very algorithms that could potentially shape our conversations, is paramount.
Right. Because if those algorithms are trained on data that's already skewed in a certain direction, then aren't we just perpetuating those same biases, even if it's unintentional?
Precisely. It's a complex issue with no easy solutions. Do we aim for meticulously curated data sets, which could inadvertently exclude certain viewpoints, or do we embrace a more democratic approach, drawing from the vastness of real-world conversations with all their inherent biases and imperfections?
It seems like a bit of a catch-22. You want the AI to be as objective as possible, but the very data it learns from is inherently subjective.
It highlights the ongoing challenge of aligning artificial intelligence with human values. It's a dynamic process that requires constant vigilance, critical evaluation, and a willingness to adapt as we learn more.
So where does this leave us? If even our most advanced technology is grappling with these fundamental questions about communication, what does it mean for us as humans trying to navigate this increasingly complex world?
Perhaps the most valuable takeaway is this. The future of communication isn't just about technological advancements, it's about our conscious choices and how we use those tools. It's about recognizing the power of language, the importance of empathy, and the enduring need for genuine human connection.
Beautifully said. We started this deep dive with a listener's question about modems, and somehow we've landed on a profound reflection of what it means to be human in a digital age.
It seems the quest for faster, more efficient communication is ultimately a journey of self-discovery, a reminder that even in the face of incredible technological advancements, the essence of human connection remains our greatest endeavor.
And on that note, I want to leave you with this thought. As we venture further into the world of AI and beyond, let's remember that true communication is about more than just transmitting data. It's about sharing our humanity. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive, and until next time, happy communicating.